All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another interview here at Upcomers in our community. My name is Taryn Ray Smith. As always, you can call me Taryn. I'll be your host for this interview alongside Dexter. First off, just want to thank him for being part of this interview. We appreciate you being here. Could you just tell our community a little bit about yourself, your general background, and then your background in trading?
Okay. Name is Dexter Webster. I'm here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I am a former corporate senior manager. Been out of the corporate game for probably like 2015. Did a little bit of consulting, and that's when I kind of got into the trading space. Around 2017, I had a former friend who had reached out and asked me if I was interested in forex through another company that was, getting people into forex training. And the interesting thing is I was familiar with it already. One from grad school because I had a global financial course that kind of introduced me to it. And then while I was out in LA, I had ran into a young lady who actually did forex trading for a company out of the UK. And so she, we had a conversation with that. So, started it. And, like most people who get into it, you don't really put the effort that you should in terms of, it is a job, but you take it lightly, especially if you're doing some other things. And, for a number of years, I just kind of messed around with it, not really, got serious with it and everything like that. And then probably about a year or so, I said, okay, let me kind of, buckle down a little bit, get a little bit serious. Um, did it for a little bit, but not necessarily consistent. And then I was introduced to prop funds from a guy I kind of traded with, and never really joined at that time, but I can't recall, but did some research, and I'm not sure if I came across you all through prop firm match or just Google search and everything like that. But then connected and started going through evaluations, and like most, you never pass right off because again, it's the consistency and you know technicals and all this other stuff that get you first. But just stuck with it because I was like, I know it works. I'm gonna do it. I just gotta deal with myself. A lot of the psychology aspects of it wasn't really the technical, is really just the psychology and it's creating the atmosphere. And then to be honest, when you all rolled out the 24 hour supernova, I think that really triggered it because that required you to be focused, consistent. It was a short period of time that you needed to do X, Y, Z in order to pass the evaluation. I've been kind of hooked on it since.
That is such a phenomenal overview and really appreciate that. So you kind of got introduced from several different arenas around similar times. And when I'm interviewing people, it's just so common. It's always a very personal journey and it always takes a learning curve, right? We're always learning along the way. So if you could just expand a little bit more into the start of your journey, how you came to learn about trading, what made you really get involved in it, and then tell us a little bit more about when you made that switch and like you said, started taking it more seriously. How did your day-to-day change that when you really became vested in like, okay, I'm really going to commit to this?
The In terms of understanding it, it was in grad school, and that was about between 2005 2007. So that's my financial management class. It kind of got me exposed to the overnight markets and everything like that. When I actually started trading, it was probably, I think, about 2017. And so, I was just basically just, trading through another, company, a multi-level marketing type company. And then after that, just kind of, did it on my own through a brokerage and everything like that. So it took a really about, till I would say really probably within the last couple of months to where it really changed for me in terms of me focusing to the point that I am now. Because you're trying different strategies. Like for example, you're trading different instruments, different times. So a lot of that was going on up until probably about, I would say about 6 or 7 months ago. And then I just started saying, you know what, I'm not going to try to trade all instruments and try to catch everything. What I'm going to do is start focusing on one instrument and kind of navigated to gold through a friend who his cousin kind of traded gold and talked about how they liked it and everything like that. So I started trading gold and just started understanding the movement and behaviors and everything like that. So I'll say, 6 months ago, and then combining that with working with the prop firms, that kind of helped because again, it allows you to, really use other capital in the sense to trade at a level that you want to kind of make it interesting for you. So, buying like the 5,000 evaluation or the 10,000 evaluation, it kind of worked out in terms of saying, okay, here's how I want to kind of trade in terms of, if I have a successful trade, here's kind of like the profit that I will see that works well with me versus, just doing $5 or $10 a day, that doesn't necessarily, energize you per se. So when you're working with the prop firms and not having to necessarily put out as much, but be able to see what type of success you can have with that level of capital, then that kind of creates the energy for you.
Absolutely. You touched on so many great points there. And we'll get into different prop firms and comparing and contrasting those in just a bit. But what do you personally most enjoy about trading? Like the freedom, the flexibility, the risk versus reward setup? What really gets you passionate and energized about it?
Um, all of the above, but I think mainly, when you look at life, there are challenges that you face, but at the end of the day, anyone who wants to be honest with themselves, um, you know, 99% of it is really what you do. And so I think with trading, it filters out all the noise that you would typically deal with in, corporate America, so you go into corporate America and depending on who's around you, that may determine how successful your career is with that particular company. Dealing with the market is not that. It's really just basically the psychological aspect of you and your understanding of the fundamentals and technical aspects of trading. And then you're sticking to your plan to execute, whether it's getting into a trade or getting out of a trade.
Absolutely. And there's so many different levels involved, and it can be really exciting, but it can be a roller coaster for people who are trying to get into it, or for people who have been into it, perhaps are struggling. And again, we'll get into like, recommendations.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk a little bit about your personal experience working with Upcomers so far. How
Mhm.
would you describe it? How long have you been with us?
Man, I mean, I've been with you. I can't recall when I started, but I would say that at the beginning, I think when the prop firms that I looked at, I think Upcomers was probably within the first five um, that I looked at. And in terms of, why Upcomers, it's been great in terms of the product offering. The one that I started out with was the Thunderbolt, which, I love that. That was a good one. And then, like I said, when you all came out with the Supernova, and now I'm working with the Supernova and Oracle on one that I like. And you always got, some new stuff came out today I got to look at as well and see, how that fits into it. But also, like the community on Discord, whenever I had like a challenge or issue, the community was there to support your support groups. Like, for example, my first payout, because of my bank and everything like that, had some challenges, but everyone that I communicated with and interacted with, they were on top of the game, explaining the process in terms of, how we had to, wait for the wire transfer to come back and then the next steps. And, everyone was definitely helpful for me. So I think that's important, especially when you're looking at the community and you see certain people who will make comments and everything like that, and you'll see how the team is definitely responsive in terms of trying to make sure that they understand, and then me seeing it and saying, yeah, yeah, that might be you, and you can come in and kind of help someone to say, look, hey, I went through this process. Here's kind of what transpired because one of the things that happens a lot. I think you all do a pretty good job of putting out the rules and describing, processes and everything like that that's on the website. But a lot of people don't want to read for whatever reason.
Amen.
That's the thing. And your support team is like, they'll respond and say, hey, here's the link to whatever. I'm like, that's great because I'm like, if I was behind that, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I think that's really a great point that anybody who's watching this, who is whether you're working with upcomers or any prop firm that you are working for, or just in life in general, anytime you're going to be on a platform and there's money involved, read the rules, read the
Yeah,
fine print. When the terms and services get updated, go and like run it through whatever AI you use or whatever. If you don't want to
grab
read it
it.
all yourself, run it through a program that
Yeah,
can go, this is how this has changed.
yeah,
Because in order for everyone to succeed, those rules are really there to protect everybody and to keep an institution functioning in a legal way that makes sense. I just really appreciate the way that you worded that. Like, and it's great. We appreciate having people in our community like you who are there to be like, for people who are newer who are thinking, hey, this is BS or whatever it
right,
is, where you're
right.
like, actually, there's a
Mm,
reason for this. Slow down. And I
yeah,
think that's great advice for everybody who's
yeah,
new in trading in general, whether you're using a prop firm or doing it solo. Slow down, like you said, with the psychology of it. So a little bit more, whatever you're comfortable sharing. How many accounts do you have with us? And yeah, like you've shared what you like. Please expand upon that as well. But also, if there's anything we can improve upon.
yeah. I have right now. I have one Oracle account and then one Supernova account that I'm running. But I have like a plan of how I want to, work through the options and everything like that with respects to the limitations of, the capital that you have. I mean, like I said, it's my primary prop firm account, just because of the rules are pretty straightforward. I like the rules around news. Again, I think the Supernova is a game changer. The Oracle is one as well, and again, I'm using those just to kind of fine tune things because eventually, I want to trade with the larger accounts and everything like that. And so when you do that, you obviously you're going to put a little bit more investment, but you want to make sure that you really work out the kinks in terms of timing and everything like that. And like I said, I went from trading anything that I was like, hey, let me try to trade this to like I really focus on gold. On the weekend, if I do anything, obviously I'll do Bitcoin, and then I look at pound odd just as a reference for my gold trading in terms of direction and confirmation, everything like that. But other than that, I'm just sticking with gold. It works for me because it doesn't spike like some of the other ones based off of news. News will hit it and it responds slowly, allow you to kind of assess the market and kind of say, okay, what is the right direction? Because that's really what it is. It's about, are you getting in at the right time and are you getting in the right direction? And, you know, use your stop losses.
Yeah, it's so funny you meant I mean, yeah, I mean gold is great. Like, I'm sure you saw, I know I saw, shoot, I heard in the women's locker room at my gym when stuff happened with silver recently,
Yeah,
and all these people in a corner like, "Oh man, this gonna be it." And I'm
yeah,
thinking, I even came home and talked to my dad and was like, "Should I get in more on silver?" And I think it's so important when we're talking about these different liquid assets that in any kind of trading, it is about consistency
yeah,
over long term.
yeah,
It is not about like, or we can even go back to AMC and going to the moon and
yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah,
people get on Reddit and they're like, this is going to be it. It's the big one. Play around with that, but like be careful with your
yeah,
risk. And that
yeah,
is takes me just seamlessly into rules of
yeah,
trading firms. Different
yeah.
trading firms have different trading rules. You've mentioned some of it so far. How do you feel about the rules at Upcomers and have they been helpful for you as a trader?
Yeah, very much because I think when I first started, I think upcomers probably had a pretty good and can't since I trade gold, news doesn't really.
Your sound is cutting out just a little bit.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, if you
Yeah,
could just say that.
the news doesn't really impact me that much because of the time periods. A lot of times, my good moves are really during the Asian London period of time. The New York is more volatile, so it's more of a 5 minute time frame that you trade, and I don't really trade that. I trade kind of like a move, so I can
Mm.
get the cleanest and the longest move for the day or so like that. But I mean the I don't really have any problems with any rules. I mean, I think it's probably the cleanest prop firm with respects to rules that you have because other ones have if you have, let's say, multiple accounts, they may say you can't do more than two accounts with the same instrument in the same direction. And I'm like,
Hmm.
if I'm only just trying to trade gold and I wanted to have five accounts that I was trading, I can't trade more than two accounts with
Yeah.
gold in that direction. Or, you get into a longer window with respects to news or good example. Let's say, for example, you have gold, US dollar, but if it was a Great Britain news, you're impacted with that red folder because it's a red folder versus, hey, does it really impact that currency? So some firms do not, distinguish between, hey, is the news associated with that currency or not, and they impact you with the 5 or 10 minute rule.
Perfect. So you mentioned that you trade in gold, which is awesome, and we're glad that you're able to have that flexibility by working with us with this, the number of accounts. Tell us a little bit more, as much as you're comfortable. How do you trade? How would you describe your trading strategy?
Yeah. So, like I said, early on, the risk management piece wasn't even there. It was like, hey, I know it's going to
Yeah.
go in this direction, so and then hey, let it go to the roof. And what happens, the market can trick you because you can have
Yeah.
success and then you think you're right all the time. And what reality is, you just got lucky. You didn't really know what the structure was, so you just got lucky, caught it in the right direction, and it went where it went. But then it brings you back because eventually it catches up to you, and so that's why you got to go back to really just proper risk management. I think proper risk management will definitely keep you in the game, learning, understand, and will not get you frustrated to start thinking that, oh, this is a fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. Is there anything that you would like to share as advice for our traders who may be struggling to win or succeed in the prop trading industry?
Yeah, I think the main thing is really understand.
Having trouble hearing you.
Okay, I said really understanding yourself. Set the proper expectation based off the information you get. When they talk about, identifying your plan, understand what you want to try to get out of it. If you knew that you wanted it to replace your job and you made X dollars or you wanted to make X dollars, then do the math to understand within proper risk management what level account that you should have. And so let's say, for example, to make that amount, you need $100,000 account, right? So that's your target eventually. But then start with a $5,000 account or whatever account, just so that you can get used to it and then focus in on it. And then the most important thing beyond that is, to me, is creating the right environment for you, meaning that, you know, look at it as a job. If it's 3 hours a night time frame that you're going to go trade, block that 3 hours, have no distractions as if you're going to work, and go do it. And then, the noise of people not believing in it, don't worry about them because they haven't done the research. If you jumped into this, you jumped into it for a reason. So, trust your instincts there that, you believe in it. And how I look at it is like, look, it's the world runs on finance, and you got a global economy, that you got a currency exchange and everything, like it's real, and understand that banks, when you go and get your 1 or 2% interest on your savings account, they're taking your money and they're using it overnight and making, whatever X percentage of it. So do what they do, and just learn the financial market.
Absolutely. I think like you really just hit the nail on the head with whatever it is that you're pursuing. There's so many things that people look at and they're like, "Oh, yeah, but that's the small percent." Yeah, but and it's true with creative endeavors and financial endeavors. And I always say you need to believe in yourself more than other people believe in you. Because like other people believe in you, but they also care about you and they worry and they're like, "Oh, this could be a big risk." But you know what? Like time is your most precious currency and you might as well spend it wisely. And like you said, like take the time to do it right.
Yeah.
Don't just like try to go in and do it quick. Look at the long game. I just totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Um, what is the biggest benefit that you've seen working with a prop firm as opposed to trading solo?
Um, outside of the different product offerings that allows you to, trade with more capital, I think the community is important because with the community, you learn through others' mistakes or successes. And to be able to have a community that you can talk to and say, look, hey, I'm trading this. What are your thoughts on this type of account? Or if you're, thinking of something that you just needed someone to add to it, or help you kind of think through it, you have that community and that support for it. So I think we're not here to do things alone. So to be able to have a community to help you through the journey, I think that's important, because I think that's going to get you over probably some of the negative things that you may think about with respects to trading. Like for example, I know when I posted out my payout, someone has said, "Hey, let me know when you actually get it," because they were probably going through a process where they thought it was taking longer than what it should. And like for me, because of the initial issue that I had, I mean, the whole process was explained to me in terms of, once you finish the evaluation, here's what happens next. It goes to this phase, and then now it gets to this team, and it goes through the process. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so my background is in operations. But when
Yeah.
someone explained that to me, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes time to move capital, especially
Yeah,
whenever you're
yeah,
working as a team for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah.
So based on everything you've learned since you first started, what advice would you give to your past self if you could?
Oh man.
Besides insider trading
Yeah,
secrets.
yeah, yeah. I would say one, definitely have a plan. Consistency. You talked about consistency earlier, and this is what I'm kind of falling into now. Like I then put clock timers on my phone to say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the gold market opens up at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm waiting for the 6:30 candle to close to see what structure is, and I'm like, okay, if I take this trade, I know this is not my move for the day, because I understand that, for gold in the Asian market, it's closer to 9:30 p.m. for me, right? So, understanding the instrument that you're trading and the behaviors and how it moves, I think that's very important, because the technical pieces, you can you can get training on that and learn enough to be successful. You can use trading view indicators that help you identify certain things. But the main thing is really about you. Is about creating consistency, and start off. Don't try to trade the whole day. Just take 2 hours, and trade within the 2 hours. And if you see your setup, take it. If you don't. And so that creates the level of discipline. I think that's the most important thing, is that discipline piece of it, that will determine whether you're successful or not.
Wholeheartedly phenomenal advice for anything that anyone's trying to achieve. You got
Yeah.
to commit and you got to do it consistently. It doesn't happen overnight. So, for our final question, and thanks again so much for your time and
Okay.
input so far, very valuable. From your honest perspective, would you recommend trading with upcomers?
Oh, I've already done that. I mean, I got a couple people that I trade, and I presented upcomers to them, and it's like, hey, I've done the heavy lifting for you all. Here's what I think the products will be for, based on how you're dealing with your day to day life. Because that's another important thing. Understand what you're doing day to day to determine what product is best for you. Like one of my friends, I told her, it's like, look, because you're still working and how you work, the 24 hours is not going to be good for you right now. But if you do the Oracle, it's a 7 day thing. You got the 15% consistent, which is easy. I know what instrument you trade. You just trade this the same time. And you just, if it's $500 that you're going to make that day, you just make $500 for all 7 days. And guess what? You're within the consistency rule. I mean, there is not a problem with me, recommending upcomers to anyone that is looking to get into this. And to be quite honest, there are a number of people that I have like a list of people who have traded with me in the past. And like I said, I'm doing the heavy lifting, and I'm like, hey, I want to help you all kind of get to that level, try this, and go through this process. And I recommend, and I'm like, hey, I even sponsor your first evaluation to try it out. Yeah,
A good friend you are. Your ops experience is showing.
yeah, yeah.
I just want to say again, thanks so much, Dexter. We really appreciate your input and insight and you being a part of our community.
Oh, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.